Welcome back. We are making a Thanksgiving feast today, and I am going to show you how to prepare some simple side dishes, prepare a turkey, and prepare some desserts. Now the desserts are going to be in a completely different video. I already have them going, so if you haven't seen that video, definitely go check it out. These desserts are super simple because you're not trying to roll out pie crust or do anything finicky. It's kind of just like dump and go. And so those desserts are going to be so delicious, and they're quick and easy. Now, for the turkey, we do need to start off with a rub. So let's make the rub for our turkey. I'm going to start with some brown sugar. Now you can do any type of seasonings on your turkey that you want, and you can cook your turkey any way. So as I get these seasonings put in here, I want to explain all the different ways that you could potentially cook your turkey. The prep starts out the exact same for any of them, and the only difference is if you want to add stuffing or not. So to this, I'm going to add some salt and pepper. Now you can use just a roaster pan in your oven. And with that, you want to cook for about 13 to 14 minutes per, how do I open this? Got it. You want to cook it for 13 to 14 minutes per pound. And I would suggest putting foil over it for the first little bit. I usually grind the pepper first and then have like just a bunch of ground pepper, but we're doing it the slow way. You could do foil one of two ways. You could start with some foil on to keep all of the moisture in, but then you have to make sure to take the foil off so you get that nice brown crispy top, or you could get the nice brown crispy top and put foil on once it is brown enough, because you don't want it to get too browned. Now, you could deep fry it, which is not something I would suggest for your first time. Going to add some rosemary and sage. You could also cook this in a roaster pan. Oh, that's a lot. I recently did that with some ribs that I was going to cook in the oven, and I ended up cooking them in the roaster because the oven broke. This is a new oven. It's working just fine. This is some oregano, and then I'm going to add some smoked paprika, garlic powder, and onion powder, and I'm not measuring, I'm just dumping however much I think makes sense. But what I'm going to do today is something completely different. I'm going to be pressure cooking it because it's the quickest way, and I found that it is the most tender, juicy, and delicious. Now, if you don't have a pressure cooker, any of those other options would work just fine. But if you do and you want to try this, this is great. I'm using the pressure canner because it's big and I have a big turkey. But if you have a small turkey, then you don't need to use a whole pressure canner. You could just use your regular old pressure cooker Instant Pot style. So that would work as well. So I'm making this rub, and I'm actually going to make it into a compound butter, which just means I'm going to add this to the butter, and then we'll use that butter to season the turkey. So I'm going to add in, this is like a half a stick plus a half a tablespoon, and I'm adding this much because that's how much is here. It's how much I have left for making the desserts. We're going to be making a green bean casserole because that is just a staple, and so I do have some cream of mushroom soup, which is something you don't typically see in my house, but I decided to opt for the quick way. We're also going to make some cranberry sauce, which includes taking it out of the jar and then it's done. Do you like this kind of cranberry sauce, like the jelly, or do you like the chunky one better? I like the jellied, but my family likes the crunchy one, and I don't get it. That one's bitter. And we're also going to be making, of course, the gravy, but then also some stuffing. So I have some bread here that's cubed up. That is some sourdough bread. You can use any bread that you want to, just you want it to be a little bit on the stale side. So that's what that is. So we will have, let's make sure I got everything. We'll have, mashed potatoes. And we're going to make just a simple mashed potato. I don't like to go over the top with the mashed potatoes because mashed potatoes are so delicious when they're just super simple. I'm not doing anything really cheesy. We're going to just keep it, more on the traditional. I guess everything's traditional, but I'm not doing anything with cheese. You could go crazy doing macaroni and cheese. You could do a cheese potato bake. You could do, I said that. What's the other thing I was thinking of? Like potatoes, like funeral potatoes. But depending on how many people you're having and how much time you have, you might not need all that much food. So we're just keeping it to the basics today. Oh, and then corn. I also like to have corn, but for the corn, I'm just going to, you know, microwave it. It's frozen corn, and add some salt and butter, and then that'll be done. Okay, our compound butter is just about mixed in. Now I'm just going to prep this over the tray so that the juices don't go everywhere. And something that you want to make sure to do is, if you have a frozen turkey, is take it out of the freezer about a week or so before, so it has time to thaw. So I took this out probably about 10 days ago. So I'm hoping it is completely thawed. We're going to start by taking off this mesh packaging. Okay, we are going to cut open the packaging. Oh gosh. Ugh. To get in there is heavy. This is a 14-pound turkey. Okay, I'm gonna take this liquid here. I just don't want it on there. Okay, now we want to grab the neck, and then sometimes they come with a packet of like gravy. So I'm going to take that and actually stick it in a bag because I am going to reserve the bones after to make some, I don't think there's a bag of gravy on this end, maybe it's on the other, to make some broth, and that's perfect for making the broth. So let's check the other side of this. Yeah. Oh, that's the, okay, no packet. That's just the like organ meat, which I don't want to do anything with. Make sure there's nothing else in here. I have before forgotten to take pieces out, only because the turkey was partially frozen, so I couldn't gather them. Okay. We have an empty turkey cavity on both sides. I'm gonna throw this away, wash my hands, and we will get to seasoning it. Okay, seasoning it is so simple. You could just like season by putting any seasonings over the top that you want, or you can kind of come through and lift the skin up a little bit on the breast. And to do that, you're just gonna get your finger between the skin and the breast, and then just kind of make a cavity. And then I'm going to take some of this compound butter and stick it in that cavity. And I'm gonna just use my finger to push it back. If you don't wanna do all of this, feel free to just put something on the top of it and it'll be just fine. There we go, we're just getting it separated. The goal is to just not waste any of it. So as long as it's somewhere on the turkey, it'll be fine. Now you'll notice there's this little red bobber there. That's supposed to tell you when your turkey is fully cooked inside. 165 is the temperature that we're looking for. And I always use a thermometer as well. I don't necessarily just blindly trust that. Now you can tie up these wings like underneath here if you want to. You can stuff your bird, but you don't necessarily have to, especially if you're going to put it in the pressure cooker, like me. I was going to say Instant Pot. I'm putting it in the pressure cooker. But one way to do that is just to lift up this bird here and then put it under like this, like it's doing a sit-up, and then they won't be flapping around and burning. You can put it in the oven at 350 degrees for, you know, about 15 minutes per pound, or we can do one of the process that I'm going to do. I'm going to have a whole different video on how specifically I am pressure canning the turkey. I'm pressure cooking it in the pressure canner. But of course you could just stick this in the oven like this and then just wait till it's done, and that's all you have to do. You don't have to do anything fancy. Or you could just put it in a roaster pan if you wanted to use one of those like big roaster ovens instead of the oven. That way you have your oven for making your sides. So I'm going to get this cooking and then we will move on to our sides. I did, of course, forget one thing that we're going to be making, which is some quick dinner rolls. Now, you can make dinner rolls the slow way with the double rise, but we are going to add a little bit more yeast and have this be just a single rise. So I'm starting with 2 cups of very warm water. It's about 120 degrees. And we're going to add 2 tablespoons of active dry yeast, followed by 2 tablespoons of sugar. We do want to let this proof, and I've also got a cup, which is 1 stick of butter over here, completely melted. So it's important to note that for this quick recipe, we are not only increasing the amount of yeast that we're using, but we're using really warm, wet ingredients. So our water's really warm and our butter is really warm, so that'll help them rise a little faster. Okay, we have proofed nicely. I'm going to add in all of that butter, followed by a tablespoon of salt, and then 6 cups of flour. And you do not have to be totally exact on this. Now we are going to let this knead for about 5 minutes. It did say to do this by hand, but I just like doing it in the mixer. You know, I reread the recipe because it just seemed weird what it was telling me to do. It was saying put it in the oven for a while, and I thought it was gonna have me proof in there, because it said put like a warm thing of water in with it, which is what I do when I'm proofing something. These aren't supposed to proof at all, so we are just going to cook them, and this makes this even easier and faster, and I'll let you know if it doesn't work. You can always just make traditional rolls. I have made those a ton of times. They always turn out delicious. But I was wanting something that's just quick and easy and doesn't take a lot of time, since it can be overwhelming having so much stuff in the kitchen. Ooh, I'm starting to smell the turkey. It just got up to pressure, so it's starting to cook. Oh, it smells delicious. Now this is supposed to make 20. I might try to make 18 because 18 is 3 by 6, and that would work out nicely. Let's get this dough out of here. So we're going to shape these just into little roll size. You could measure it using weights. I do that a lot to get them all the same size, but today I'm just going to eyeball it. So we're looking for 18, which is 3 and 6. How else can I do that? 9 and 2? Okay, so we're gonna divide it in half. So 9 and 2. So there's our 2, and now I need 9. So if I go into thirds, there's 1/3, 2/3, 3/3. Then each of these get thirds. Okay, third, and a third. This needs to go in the third twice, so third. We'll do it again, here, that was small. That would be some over here for it. And there. Okay, we have enough pieces. I was soaking the bowl because I wanted that to come off really easily. So, kind of eyeball, make sure they all look decently similar. So we're going to kind of squish it out a little bit, fold it over, take these 2 edges, fold it, take these 2 edges, fold it. We're just taking the 2 edges and folding them over until we get a really nice, like, ball. And this is a very warm dough. So I'm adding it right there. Now, this recipe calls to put them in the oven into a cold oven, and then we're going to heat the oven to 400 degrees. We're also going to have a bowl of hot liquid in there heating with it so that there's some steam. Okay, here these are. I did move them to a bigger pan, and I am going to get them in the oven. I already have some water in the oven. I just put it in like that because that's what this recipe called for. And I didn't let these sit at all. I just rolled them out and we're putting them in. So now it's in, and this is not a completely cold oven, but it's pretty cold. We're going to set it now to 400. Whoops, bake. Keep going. I was looking through the camera. And then once that preheats, we'll set it for 35 minutes. Next up, we're going to make the stuffing, and I am going to use a Dutch oven because I can put it on the stove and then put it right into the oven. I'm going to dice up an onion, and this is all dependent on how much bread you want to use for how much of each ingredient you want to use. I will link the recipe down below. This is just a very simple, basic stuffing recipe. We're not adding any sausage or anything fancy. We're just doing easy, simple. That's what we're going for. You know, before I get that cut up, I want to get the fat going on the stove. I'm going to add a little bit of oil and butter so that we can saute this onion. Hi Lola. It is not dinner time, even though it smells like turkey. The cat's noses are going a little crazy. Oops, horse. Okay, while that's melting, we're going to chop our onion, and I have some celery that's already diced from last year's garden, so that is what I'm going to use. So for this recipe, we need, did I cut that weird? We just need salt, pepper, and poultry seasoning, and that's it. Of course, you could use any seasonings that you would like. We'll cut that one more time. And I'm going to do a pretty fine dice on this onion. Okay, let's get our onion in. I'm going to do the onion first, only because the celery is frozen and I don't want all that water to come off yet. Okay, we're just gonna saute this onion. I'm going to go on a little bit of a low heat, maybe not super low. I don't want it to get brown, but I do want it to be nice and soft. While our onions are sauteing and our bread is cooking, I guess, and the turkey is going, I'm going to peel these potatoes. Now, when you're prepping, it does take quite a bit of time, so you can do a lot of this prep the night before. So you could peel and dice your potatoes the night before, get them in some cold water, which is what I have there. Whoops. And then you could have them ready to just boil in the morning. You could also cook them the night before, and then the day of, you will just need to reheat them with a little bit extra liquid. Of course, all the desserts can be prepped ahead of time. And then the stuffing, you can get everything chopped up the night before and ready to go. There's a lot that you could do to try to save your sanity. Now I'm using 5 decent sized potatoes from the garden. I've been using the big sized potatoes for mashed potatoes because then I am peeling the big ones and not each little one. So my plan is to get the potatoes on as soon as the stuffing is done with that spot on the stove, and I think that timing should work out pretty well. I do need to be keeping my eye over on that stove though, so we don't burn the onions. And hopefully the timing works out that while the celery is cooking, I can get all these potatoes diced. Now it doesn't matter what size you choose to cut these potatoes, but you need them to all be cut the same size because they cook at, similar size pieces cook at the same rate. So we want them to all be about the same. Looks like I missed a piece of that. Of skin. Now you don't have to take the skins off, but I've just found that when they're from the garden, if I leave the skins on, sometimes they taste like dirt. So I'm going to get these just into the cool water right away because otherwise they could turn brown from oxidization. Now we turn our attention back to the stuffing. And I'm going to open up a jar of turkey stock. I'm going to add it in, just about half of it to the bottom, and then I'll put the rest on top. And I'm going to add our seasonings now. So I'm going to add a decent amount of salt because remember this is going to be seasoning all of that bread. Poultry seasoning as well. And then black pepper. Goodness. Now the amount of liquid you use depends on how much soggy you want, basically. Like how soggy do you want the bread to be? And I like it to be really soggy. So I might even add more than this jar. If you have homemade bread or like bakery style bread, it might take quite a bit more than if you had like a regular old sandwich loaf from the store. Okay, I'm going to add the rest of this on top. And then I want to let this soak up the liquid. So I'm going to do that and then we'll add more liquid if we need to. So what I'm going to do is get this off onto a trivet with the lid on and just let it soak for a little while. And this is a great time to get our potatoes on and boiling. So I'm getting those on. And let's take a peek in here. Ooh, those are looking so good. Our rolls are looking great. They're not done yet. Okay, the rolls are done. The timer still had 8 minutes on it, which tells me that I was supposed to time it from when I put it in the oven, not from when it got heated up all the way. So as soon as you put it in, start the timer, and then you're good. So I am going to just take some butter and roll it on the top of these. Okay, Something else that I want to do is get these off of this pan because this pan is hot. So I have a cookie rack under here, or a cooling rack. There we go. Now, let's see if we can do that magic trick. Where you go? Well, some magic that is. There we go. Let's check in over here and see how this is doing. It looks like it has soaked up most of the liquid, not quite all of it yet. So I'm going to just stir it. Okay. And then our potatoes are not quite up to a boil yet. But next up, we're going to make a green bean casserole. And you guys, this one is also so easy. I'm just going to take this cream of mushroom soup, get it in here, and I need to grab a spatula. And then we need a half a cup of milk, and this is just like a mix, dump, go. Okay, that was about a half a cup of milk, and then about a tablespoon of soy sauce. I'm gonna use Cocoa Aminos. And then some pepper. And it does not call for salt, probably because soy sauce has a ton of salt in it, but Cocoa Aminos does not, so I am gonna add some salt. And then we'll mix this up. Now you can use canned green beans or fresh green beans or frozen green beans for this recipe. I'm using frozen, and I actually put them in the microwave to thaw them out before starting. And you would want to drain them if you're using canned, and if you're using fresh, you would want to wash them and then cut off the ends. We are going to add in about 4 cups. These are 12 ounces each. This is a little bit less than it calls for, but we'll be okay. Mix this up. Okay, let's get the finishing touches on this and get it into the oven. I'm going to add, I don't know, that many onions into it, and I'm going to mix them in, and then we're going to cook it at 350 for 20-25 minutes or so, and then we will sprinkle the remaining onions on top for the last 5 minutes. Okay, into the oven this goes. Let's check on the stuffing and see if we want to add any more liquid. That has soaked up very nicely. Yeah, I think I'm going to go with that. So I'm going to push it all down just because I kind of want it all together. And then I'm going to put the lid on this and then get it in the oven as well. These potatoes are boiling. Oh, I forgot to salt the water. You guys, rookie mistake. Better late than never. Heavily salt your potato water. You want these to be soft before we do anything with them. So they are able to be poked, but they're not soft yet. So we will wait on that. The potatoes are now fork tender. I'm going to get them drained out, and I have some cold water going as well, so I don't have super hot water going down my pipes. And now I'm going to mix the potatoes in this bowl because I don't want my glass one to break since these potatoes are so hot. Now I like to keep my potatoes really simple. I am going to add in this stick of butter that's like, I don't know, a little over a half a stick. And I'm going to add some salt, and that's it. That's all I want on my potatoes. I like them very simple, but you could of course use cheese. You could use cream cheese. Oh, I do need a little bit of milk. Let me grab that. And you could use chicken broth instead of milk. And I just use a masher. You could also use your mixer, your KitchenAid or whatever kind of mixer, or a hand mixer, but I find that this is just easy enough to do it like this. Let's see. Delicious. Perfect. It is time to add the crispy onions on top for the last 5 minutes. You know, I think I'm going to actually pull it all the way out. Let's check on this. Ooh, that looks good. I don't think it's done yet, though. Guys, there's so many of these, but what else am I gonna do with them? They're all going on. Okay, back into the oven for the last 5 minutes. I just took this green bean casserole out of the oven. It looks delicious. We have about 5 minutes left on the turkey. And then I took the lid off of the stuffing, and then I'm just going to let it kind of crust up on the top a little bit. I did get our bread just moved into a bowl with a cloth for presentation, and then I have the potatoes in this bowl. And then we need to prep this cran sauce, and here's how easy it is. We're just going to put it on this plate. Kind of want it laying down though. So we're going to tip it. There we go, and that's prepped. The turkey came out of the pressure cooker. It looks delicious. I got it all put here. Now this turkey did not have like a nice skin and a pretty like carvable turkey. It just fell completely apart in the cooker because it was that tender. Now I've taken most of the bones and everything out of this pot. I just need to get the liquid into here so that I can make the gravy. And I'm going to put it through a strainer so we don't end up with all the turkey bits. All right. I don't think we're gonna need this much gravy though, so I think I'm gonna use a different pot to make the gravy, and this will just be what I use to grab. Gravy starts out with a roux, so we're going to add some butter and get that melted. And while that's melting, I am going to add a little bit of salt and pepper. I think that after tasting it, it could definitely use a little. Okay. Now that that's almost all the way melted, I'm going to add in just a couple tablespoons of flour. And I'm going to cook this until that raw flour taste is completely cooked out. This is just like if we were going to be making a cream of soup, except for we're not going to add any milk. We're only going to add the turkey broth. So we're going to give that just a second to cook out that flavor. I think we're good. So we are going to add in just a ladle at a time until we get to the thickness that we want. And we don't want it to spill on the stove. And when you're making a gravy, you want to whisk it pretty vigorously because you don't want it to clump. Okay, this is mixing in quite nicely, but it's definitely thicker than I want it, so we'll add more liquid. Okay, we'll let this come up to a boil. And then as it comes up to a boil, I'm going to add a little bit more. And we'll do it again. This will probably be the amount that I'm going to make. And we'll just use that as broth. And that's as easy as it is. As soon as this comes up to a boil, it is done. And then we can get it into a little serving dish. The last step to bring together this Thanksgiving dinner is some corn, which apparently needs this. So I am doing, whoa, nothing fancy here. I just cooked up this bag of corn in the microwave, and then I'm going to add some butter and salt. And now I just need to mix that in. Probably would be a lot easier to do with a spoon. Everything is over here and completely ready. We have the dinner rolls right in here. We've got the turkey. We have the mashed potatoes. We have the stuffing. We have the green bean casserole, the gravy, the corn, cranberries, jelly. I was gonna say sauce, cranberry jelly, and then all of the desserts. This looks so good. All right, you guys, we did put together a Thanksgiving feast. This took about 5 hours total, so definitely if you can, prep a little bit the night before. That way on Thanksgiving, you're not doing all of the things. But this is our feast. We are ready to eat, and I'm ready to dig in. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're new here and you haven't yet, please subscribe. If you are interested in the video of how we cooked the turkey and how we made the desserts, I will have them linked here. And if they're not out yet, they will be linked there shortly. Thanks so much for being here. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.